Hello and welcome to episode 8 of When Life Gives You Lemons, Go Vegan. This podcast celebrates and shares people's incredible stories of recovery after making the transition to a low-fat, whole-food vegan lifestyle. I'm your host, Corinne Nidja. In 2004, I was left feeling terrified and helpless after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And 13 years later, after adopting a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based diet, I feel in control and amazing and symptom-free for the last 9 years. This podcast was created for all the people out there now who are frightened and feeling without hope. I'm incredibly passionate about supporting other people to adopt a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based lifestyle for themselves and to see that food truly can be medicine. This week's episode is with neuropsychologist Dr Ash Nayate, who adopted a vegan diet after watching the iconic vegan documentary Earthlings. In this podcast, she discusses the benefits of a plant-based diet on our mental health and her tips on working through the obstacles that can arise on the way to adopting a vegan diet, and plus so much more. She's super articulate, really smart and fascinating to listen to. I hope you enjoy episode 8. Welcome, Dr. Ash.
Thank you so much, Corinne, for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. If you want to give an introduction to the people who are listening.
Sure. So I'm a neuropsychologist. So it's a psychologist with neuro in front of it. It basically means that I specialize in brain function and how it influences our behavior, and more specifically, how we can actually harness the power of our brain to change our bad habits, to achieve our goals, and to live a healthy, successful, meaningful life. I'm really specifically interested in veganism because I think veganism is a fantastic vehicle for everybody to improve the quality of their life.
Wow.
As well as improving the quality of life for the animals and the planet.
I don't know much about, I don't know if anyone who would be listening would know much about neuropsychology and how it could impact on our mental health and on our well-being. Well, combined with veganism. So if you want to give us a bit of a explanation, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So we have got inbuilt habits, and some of these habits they're actually inbuilt into all humans. And then we've got the habits that we developed as individuals as we were growing up, from our parents, from our teachers, from our friends, and from our life experiences. And so what can often happen is we get into these patterns which aren't necessarily useful, but because they're so ingrained in our mind, we just follow them almost unthinkingly. And there's a statistic somewhere that says that we spend about 80% of our waking hours on autopilot, so not really thinking about what we're doing. So the 80% of time that we're on autopilot, it's all about our habits. Those are what are driving our behavior. And a really good example of this is if you've ever driven home or driven to work, so a really familiar pathway for you, and you get home and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was on my way home, and I don't even remember the last 20 minutes of my journey. And that was our brain's autopilot working for us while we were off thinking about something else. And so it's really important that if we're spending 80% of our time on autopilot, we need to have good habits that are going to advance our mental health and our happiness and our chances of reaching our goals.
That's so true. I've done that so many times, driven home and gone, how did I get here? I don't remember. And then I was singing.
That's right. You're like, a song comes on, you totally get lost in it, and then, oh, I'm home now. How did that happen? And the worst thing is when you don't actually intend to go home, like you need to go, 2 streets away, and you're like, shit, I just ended up at home.
I know that you just mentioned that you're moving house, and for a while I drove to my old house. We moved around the corner from our house, a 6-minute walk.
Wow.
And I kept driving into my old driveway.
Yes. So, and that's especially tough because the whole neighborhood is still the same. And so you're really having to undo a lot of the old habits and start entrenching new ones.
So true. So how does that relate to a vegan diet?
Sure. So I'm going to make the assumption that most people who are vegan did not start out being vegan. Well, they were raised eating meat, eating animal products, and it was after some kind of realization that they became vegan. And I think that that's really, it's more important than we realize, because to become vegan when you were raised differently, it actually requires a lot of undoing of old habits. And it's a real sticking point for why many people do not go vegan, because the prospect of changing habits is really scary. It's why people have trouble instilling any new habit or breaking any bad habit. So people have trouble quitting smoking. They have trouble starting an exercise program. They have trouble eating more healthily. They have trouble reducing their stress or starting meditation or yoga or any of those positive practices. It's because the habits are so ingrained. And I think that by knowing the way that our brain works and having that awareness, it actually puts us in the driver's seat for, okay, I know what my mind is doing right now, but I am going to take over the autopilot and I'm going to steer myself in a different direction. So that could be adopting a vegan diet.
Okay, so if you, let's say you've watched What the Health, because lots of people watched What the Health and they've wanting to go vegan, but you're aware that 80% of your daily routine you do in autopilot, like you say, and they're thinking, I don't know how to break this habit. I've been eating meat since I was born and dairy and eggs, but I do believe it's better for my health. Where do you think that they should start in trying to rewire their brains and change those habits that are ingrained?
Yeah. There's a few steps, and I'll start with probably the most important one, and that is to really boil down to why. Why is this change necessary? And it's going to be different for different people. So for some people, it is around they're experiencing chronic health issues. And I know that you're familiar with this, and also there were some of the case studies in What the Health of people who were really, really struggling with their health and in lots of pain and taking lots of medications. So for them, the health factor is going to be the biggest motivation. For people such as myself, mine was more ethical, and it was really just I couldn't in good conscience continue to live the way that I was living. I know some people who are actually really strongly environmentally focused, and so for them it was the environmental impact that led them to veganism. So really boiling down the reasons is so important, because everyone talks about getting motivation and getting inspired. You can't get it. You ignite the fire within. And so, some people say, oh, you need to go vegan for the right reasons, and fitting into your wedding dress from 20 years ago, that's not a good enough reason. But I don't agree with that. I think that whatever reason works for you, you got to take that and go with it, because as you make the transition to veganism, more and more sources of motivation will open up. So it might start out as health or ethics, but then we branch out and we realize, okay, sustainability and all of these other things.
That's so true. It was so true for me. I started out selfishly. Well, it felt kind of selfish, but just for my own health. And then the ethics came in, and then the sustainability came in. And it wasn't just I didn't get all the reasons at once. I just chose the health, and then it had a ripple effect. So, no, it's really, really... I read somewhere, I don't know where, but they talked about stacking the whys. Stacking the whys until you have a big enough why that you can't do anything else. Yeah, that's definitely that draws a lot from like coaching and positive psychology. And I know people who've gone vegan because they were struggling with acne and they eliminated dairy and they noticed an improvement, and so they thought, well, what else can I do? And some people would view that as a very superficial or selfish reason. I disagree. And by the way, selfishness is not a bad thing.
Yeah. We actually need to be a little bit selfish in a world that can take and take and take from us. But yeah, just like you said, we start off and we need to keep revisiting, because to my mind, we can go vegan for any number of reasons. Ultimately, though, when we tap into the ethical and environmental and sustainable reasons for being vegan, that's what keeps us vegan. Because the health stuff can come and go. People, they drop a few pounds or their skin clears up a bit or they maybe improve their health and they're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling pretty good now. I think I can start introducing the animal products. So I don't see, health can be a great reason to start. I don't think it's enough to keep us going. We need to really tap into some of those reasons outside of ourselves. It's those more altruistic reasons, doing things for others.
That's definitely makes sense to me. When I was just doing it for my health, I remember that with multiple sclerosis, they say when you're pregnant, you're kind of in remission. Most women tend to not have any relapses when they're during their pregnancies. And I wasn't vegan. I was just eating vegan for my health. And my pregnancy, I'm like, give me all the meat and dairy and the chocolate and the cakes. And I just pigged out on all that stuff. And it wasn't until I made the connections with the animals and the planet after my son was born that I was like, and yeah, then now I never would do that. But the first time I was just doing it for my health, and I was like, 9 months where I can eat what I want.
Yeah. Sure. Totally. And I think that's a really common pattern for people who make changes for health reasons and only health reasons, and they don't look further.
True. So how long have you been vegan?
So I became vegan in 2008. So next year, so this is like my 10th year now. So next year I'll have my vegan anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really exciting.
I mean, and, I know people, they've been vegan for 20, 25, 30 years, which, it's just so amazing. And as time goes on, we're going to see more and more people who can say, well, hey, I've been vegan for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and I'm still alive.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. And how did you start?
Earthlings was it for me. And actually, it was Earthlings that convinced me. Obviously, though, a seed can't take hold until the ground is fertile. So there was a part of me which had been questioning myself prior to watching Earthlings. So I actually, it all started because I was trying to prove someone wrong, which is always a great reason to do things. And so I used to eat a lot of canned tuna fish, and I'm just disgusted even saying that right now. I used to eat a lot of canned tuna, and someone said, oh, but mercury's so bad for you. And I was like, there's not that much mercury in tuna, and I'm going to prove you wrong. And when I actually started to look at the research, and I thought to myself, my goodness, there actually is, but there's more to it than that. And I came across Meet Your Meat, which is I think Peter. It's like a very short documentary, and then I came across Earthlings, but it was Earthlings. I watched it right through with a big box of tissues, and from that day forward, I didn't realize I was a vegan. It was that moment. I just couldn't do it. So I said, I'll try the vegan thing for 30 days and see how I go. And at the end of 30 days, I actually gave myself permission to eat meat. And I remember standing in front of this big thing of dead marine life, and I just couldn't do it. So that was it. It was Earthlings.
Wow. Earthlings, I have to watch it like this. And my husband's like, you're already vegan. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
I'm like, if I want to ask someone to tell someone that they should watch it, I want to make sure I've watched it so I can.
Yeah, it's the more, I think once we become vegan, it becomes even more difficult to watch.
Now, I know that a lot of people struggle when they do decide. So if they're listening to this and they're thinking, oh, I'd like to try it, but my husband or my kids aren't vegan and they don't want to go vegan, or they're not ready to, or I don't know if they'll be okay with it, or those kind of things. Did you have anything like that, any resistance when you first made this change?
Oh, definitely. It was not so I was married. I still am married, but my husband had no interest in becoming vegan. He was actually very supportive in the sense of like, you do what you got to do. But I actually did get a lot of resistance from other people around me. It was really difficult. People telling me it was unhealthy. People who had never shown concern for my health before then started to say things like, well, protein and iron and calcium and all of these things. And yeah, it was really hard. I had people sabotaging me too. So they would make something and say, yes, it's vegan. And then I would find out later that no, there were actually animal products in it. And whether that was real sabotage or they just forgot, I don't know. It was really, really difficult. And it probably took a few years before people really accepted that I'm serious about this and it's not just a phase. So you were asking about if I had any advice to give. I mean, I can certainly share my experience. So my husband who said he would never go vegan, he has been vegan now for 6 years, nearly 7 years. And so the way that happened, I tried many ways, including the evangelical shoving pamphlets at him saying, look at what happens to the chickens, and that didn't really work. I think that the people around us are afraid of change. We're afraid of change. Everyone's afraid of change. And the people around us, they tend to be afraid that we're going to force them into something that they don't want to do. So I think it's important that right off the bat, even though in the back of our mind we secretly hope they'll go vegan, I think it's important to say to them, look, I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. This is for me. I'm making this change because I think that it's right for me. And if they love us and support us, I would hope that they would have enough respect for us to, if not openly support the decision, to at least not try and ruin it or sabotage it for us. So there's some elements there of boundaries and respect, which I think is really important. And I find that once we make the change, most people don't even know what veganism means and what vegan food looks like. So we make the change ourselves and we bring new foods into the home and different kinds of meals, and they try it and maybe they like some and maybe they don't like others. We take them to vegan restaurants or vegan festivals, and they get to experience different things. They notice the changes in us, the benefits. Maybe it's our health or our feelings of well-being, or our sleep improves or whatever. And then they just start to see it in action, because it's easy to make a change when you've watched someone go through it themselves and come out the other side with all of these positive benefits. Because the idea of veganism, it's very abstract, and it's hard to kind of take this notion, which, this vegan diet, and someone writes it down and it's a meal plan or something, but to actually witness it, it's extremely powerful.
Did you and your husband have obvious health benefits as a result of eating this way?
We both did. I'll speak to my health benefits. I noticed my skin improved. I did used to struggle with acne, so huge improvements to my skin. My hair got thicker. Things like even nails breaking easily, like that stopped happening. I found that waking up in the morning feeling congested and tired, like that really, really improved. Once I became vegan, I found myself getting sick very infrequently. What else? My sleep improved. I slept deeper. I found that my athletic recovery was better, so I was able to exercise more, and I used to exercise like every day and sometimes more often than that. What other health benefits? My concentration was better because I no longer needed coffee to keep myself awake. And that was kind of a synergistic thing because my sleep was better as well. Digestion definitely got better, and very small things like stomach was a bit flatter, little things like that. Which they don't worry me so much, but they're nice side effects to have, I suppose.
Yeah. And what about your husband?
So the one I'll share the ones that he's shared, because I don't know how comfortable he is with me sharing everything.
Please. I only share the ones you think he'd be okay with.
Yeah. Well, because he shares sort of his benefits on Facebook. So the ones that I know he'd be comfortable sharing on Facebook. So he's quite into lifting weights, and he found that once he became vegan, and especially eliminating the meat, the animal products, the meat, like the flesh products, he found that his muscle recovery was better, and it actually just seems to be improving every day. Like he can train very heavy every single day, and even more than once a day, and he's not overly sore or or injured or anything like that. His skin improved too. So when he used to lift weights, and he would drink a lot of dairy-based protein shakes, and the dairy was making his skin break out. So he got rid of the dairy and that really improved. He's increased his muscular strength a lot and the size of his muscles too, which is a nice benefit for him. So he's gained muscle, but he's dropped, I suppose, fat weight. He was not fat at all to begin with, but his body composition has changed, and from his perspective, he sees it as having changed for the better. His sleep has improved as well. He just doesn't get sick. It's amazing, and less congested. He can sometimes snore, but that's definitely improved a lot since going vegan. What else? Those are the things I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And what was your way of eating before? Because some people might think, oh, maybe they always ate pretty healthy or always ate very minimal amounts of meat and dairy and egg products. What was it like for you in your home?
Yeah, so breakfast would be, he didn't used to eat breakfast at all. My breakfast used to be like coffee and yogurt and porridge or yogurt and muesli. I didn't used to eat a lot of fruit. I didn't drink cow's milk because I am sensitive to lactose, but I did used to eat yogurt and cheese. That would be breakfast, and sometimes, the eggs and I feel sick saying it, eggs and omelettes, and I used to eat eggs every day, actually. That would be pretty common. Lunch would be like salad and meat usually. So it was a very high protein, high fat, low carbohydrate diet. I didn't used to eat a lot of rice or bread or anything, and dinner would be about the same. I used to work at a gym, so I think I was quite influenced by the way that my co-workers ate, which is lots of meat and salad and vegetables, no fruit, not a whole lot of fibre, to be honest. No potatoes, no bananas, things like that.
Yeah. And so what would a day look like now? Like a typical breakfast, typical lunch, typical dinner?
Breakfast is usually fruit, and where we like smoothies, we put greens and seeds and things into them. Lunch and dinner are pretty similar. So rice with maybe lentil soup. Last night I made like a big pot of chili, vegan chili with beans and lots of vegetables in there. We eat gluten-free pasta. I like this morning, actually, my 3-year-old and we made brownies out of red kidney beans. So I figure they're healthy, they're healthy brownies. So we do make treats like that as well. Pretty much whole food, vegan, and we occasionally eat out. And, I love hot chips and things like that. I'll eat cupcakes and all the rest of it, but just day to day, pretty simple.
Sounds yum. I like a brownie. I make mine with oats at the moment. They're yum.
Oh, nice.
Oats and banana.
Nice.
Actually, it sounds really simple, but yum.
Yeah, That's really good. You can make them into cookies as well, oats and bananas, and
Yeah, I just change the mixture if I make it into it's biscuits one day, the same thing becomes brownie the next day.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, it's just quicker with brownies, pour it in, whereas biscuits you have to get each one.
I know. Yeah, I totally get you.
I keep making hand gestures and no one can see. Like with the earthlings, I said, watch it like this, but no one can see in the podcast when they're listening. They're like, watch it like what? With my hands over my fat eyes. Yeah, so one of my questions would just be about 3 things that you can think of that you think might help making the transition easier for someone who's starting out.
Okay. The first thing is to start with the easiest thing. So, which is a very vague statement, I realise. So there are foods that we all have in our life that we're not overly attached to. Like we really couldn't care less if we're having, let's say, if we have our coffee with soy milk versus cow's milk. If that doesn't really bother us all that much, then make those changes, but make all of those sorts of really simple, easy changes. If, swapping out cow's milk yogurt with coconut yogurt, swapping out, what else? Swapping out chicken nuggets with a vegan version of chicken nuggets. Even the condiments that we use, a lot of them contain animal products, and so swapping out for the vegan version. So make all of those really easy changes right at the beginning. A lot of people are reluctant to go vegan because they say, well, I love cheese too much. So my response is, okay, go vegan except for the cheese thing. So get rid of all of the other things, make all of those easy changes. So that would be my first suggestion. My second suggestion would be focus on the food that you love already that happens to be vegan. So it might be falafel and hummus, which is often a real favorite for people. Maybe it's like pasta and vegetables, or like a nice, vegetable lasagna. It might be like Indian food, Indian cuisine, where there's already a lot of vegetarian dishes, or Mexican food. So things that you already love that already happen to be vegan, just bring more of those into your life. Because I think when people are faced with the prospect of veganism, it's like, mind goes blank. What do I eat? And we forget that there's so many things that we already love that are vegan, even just fruit, like a big fruit salad, so delicious. And, who doesn't like fruit? So that would be my second suggestion.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I think we just get so hung up on what's lacking.
It seems so huge, the concept to go vegan, and what you've just said, those two tips are really great for people, just to break it down into a real simple thing. Okay, I'll just go plant-based except the cheese, or I'll just add in more of those foods that I like that are already vegan. They're great. They're great tips.
Yeah. And the third one, I would say, well, I'm just trying to pick one more that
you can do two more if you'd like.
One is the third one would be, it's about perfectionism, right? This can be a real problem with vegans, because it can be this, okay, I'm vegan, and I've been vegan for a week, and whoops, I had something and I didn't realize there was milk powder in it, because there's milk powder in everything. And I didn't realize there was milk powder, and I failed, and I'm terrible, and so now I'm just going to go back to eating the way that I was. I think that that's a really dangerous way of thinking, because it just sets us up to fail. And this doesn't mean that we should just, I'm having a hankering for some cow's cheese, so I'll just eat it. I'm not talking about making excuses, but I think just being a little bit kinder to ourselves if we do make an honest mistake, and it happens. Like I told you, people used to make things for me and say that they were vegan, and I discovered that they weren't. And it's really hard to do that, to sort of go forward when you feel like you've mucked up. And we need to experience the disappointment of when that happens, and maybe a little bit of anger. How dare they do that to me? Or how dare they put milk powder in something that doesn't even need milk powder? And then keep going. Yeah. And it's just to be kinder to ourselves, I think.
And I think that we need to realize that it can happen to even the most seasoned, vegans. And I've been vegan for just up to 6 years. And the other day, me and my sons ate a whole plate full of the zucchini fritters, thinking that they were out of wedding. My brother's vegan, and I thought, this is the vegan thing that they've got for us. And we're eating it. We're all eating it, my kids, and it was delicious. And then, like an hour later, we found out they were covered in egg wash. And you just think, oh God, my baby's never had egg before, and now he's had a whole plate full of egg.
Yeah,
it's just. You just have to jump back on the bike and dust yourself off. And
yeah. And I think that what happens in that moment, we feel this whole mix of emotions like disgust and fury, and it's really hard to cope. And generally most people aren't that great at handling those feelings in a healthy way. And so there's a part of our mind which is like, well, I feel so uncomfortable right now, so I'm just going to turn my back on veganism and just turn my back on everything that I learned, because it's easier to pretend that doesn't exist than to have to face what I'm feeling, and even have to have the prospect of that happening again.
Yeah, true.
I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. I guess it's kind of like, well, if it doesn't mean anything to me, if I can dismiss the whole vegan thing so effortlessly, then I don't have to feel this feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It did feel, for me, and my kids were just annoyed they couldn't keep eating those things. but yeah, no, it happens. Oh, it happens. When it happens,
Yeah.
I'm always horrified. But I guess the average person probably might be listening to this and that isn't vegan yet, maybe thinking, I'm a long way off feeling that way. Well, it's really good to know that. I think that, you know, even after 10 years, you can make mistakes, and making the mistake doesn't detract from the good work that you're doing for your health, for the animals and for the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just jump back on the wagon.
Think of it like if you've made a commitment to get in shape or improve your fitness, and there's one day you wake up and you've got a cold and you're like, I can't even get out of bed right now, then does that mean that, okay, we should just throw in the towel and never exercise again? Of course not. There's still benefits to the things that the actions that we've taken prior to that. And sure, if we make one honest mistake, and I don't want to suggest that we should just, okay, be vegan, and then if the impulse takes us, okay, let's just eat some meat for the hell of it. I'm not suggesting that, but it's more.
This is accidental consumption.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's more about, okay, I made a mistake, we deal with it, we move through that, and then make a pledge to keep going forward. Because just taking one step back doesn't mean that you go back to square one. It's like if you get a flat tire, you don't slash your other 3 tires because you're like, I hate my car now. It's like, fix the tire and keep going.
Exactly. You said I had a couple more, but what would be one more if you've forgotten the couple more tips that you had that might be helpful for people?
Oh, okay. This one is to remember the power of momentum. So when we first start to make changes, it seems like it's a big effort for very little payoff. And it's a big effort because it's so new and unfamiliar to us, and it's new foods and a new way of thinking. And then we're like, well, what benefit am I really getting? But it's after a week or after a fortnight. That's when the ball really starts going, and we really start seeing changes because our taste buds change and our gut bacteria changes. And that's when we start to notice improvements in our health. And as time goes on, and we rack up the runs on the board. So it's a month now, it's been 6 months now, it's been a year now. We see the improvements getting better and better and better. So it's like exponential growth. And it's like that with everything, to be honest. It's like that with weight loss. If anyone's ever tried to lose weight, you find that maybe for the first short while, it seems like the scales aren't budging, but then the weight really starts to fall off.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like that with studying or anything. Yeah, like you said, it's like that with anything. You just start, and the first assignment feels impossible, and then you just get used to that you have to write a certain way and work a certain way and plan your time a certain way. And I think that's the same with veganism. When you start and you're not prepared and you don't have any food in the house, and you're like, well, I'm starving, so I'm going to eat this pack of twisties because it's here and there's nothing else vegan. And then you start realizing, okay, when I'm going out or when I'm hungry, I'm going to need to have these foods in the house ready to go so that I'm not reaching for junk food. Or if I'm going out late at night, I'm only McDonald's is open, that I'm going to have to, I carry like a whole handbag full of snacks because I just don't want to, not that I go out very often, but if I ever do, I know now, like, after being called out once when I first went vegan, that I want a handful of almonds and apples and bananas in my handbag.
Totally. And you're a mum, so you need the snacks because you never know. You just never know. Yeah, completely. And so it's that. It really is for everything. So learning a musical instrument, it's the same. Picking up a new sport, a new skill. You start yoga, you feel like you're completely inflexible, but then it comes with time. So you start veganism, there's this real hurdle of everything's weird and new, and what is cashew cheese and, seitan, what the hell? But then the newness, you get through it and you keep going, and then the benefits really accumulate. And there's already the altruistic benefits you can see right away. Not everybody resonates with that. Altruism is one of the most powerful ways to improve our mental health. So even just focusing on, I did something today and these animals did not have to die because of me. I saved a life today, or I saved many lives today. That's pretty powerful.
You just touched on the altruism and mental health. What are the other ways that you think that adopting this way of eating can positively impact upon our mental health?
Sure. So I'll mention one physical and one psychological. So from a physical point of view, when we improve our diet, we change our gut bacteria, and there are many links now between our microbiome and our mental health. So in a nutshell, our gut bacteria improve, we reduce inflammation in the body. I mean, you know this, better than I do probably. We reduce inflammation, and that can improve our mental health. It improves the functioning of all of our organs, including our brain. So that's one from a physical point of view. And from a psychological standpoint, I mean, I mentioned altruism. I can't reiterate it enough. And veganism really can be the gateway to adopting a number of other habits that are beneficial to us. So you see, I became vegan, and then I stopped drinking coffee, and then I stopped drinking alcohol. And I'm not saying that you need to do those things if you want to be vegan, but what I'm saying is when we make a change that's as profound as going vegan, we realize I'm capable of so many things. If there were habits in our life that we're struggling to let go of and things we want to start doing, and we're like, dude, I can go vegan. If I can be vegan in this world that is 99% non-vegan, I can do anything.
That's true. That's really true. I never thought about it like that, but you do feel like a superhero. Like, I just feel like, what can't I try? I've done this. Now what can't I do?
Absolutely.
I'll start a podcast. Sure, why not?
Right. You'll write a book.
Sure, why not?
All of these things, yeah.
Okay, thank you for those. The last thing would be just to talk about you and your work and how people can find out and connect with you, or they can hear you talk, or, how can people hear more from you or learn more about you, see you speak, or anything like that?
So I'm based in Melbourne, so I do attend a lot of the vegan festivals in Melbourne, and I speak at some of them. Probably the best way to connect with me is on social media. So if you look at Vegan Neuropsychologist on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, then you will find me. So neuropsychologist is neuro, N-E-U-R-O, psychologist at the end. So vegan neuropsychologist is me, and I'm on there pretty frequently, so you're welcome to message me through social media. I also have a website, which is www.revolutionme.com.au. So revolutionme.com.au. And I don't just write about veganism, I also write about I've considered myself as a voice for the most vulnerable people in our society, which is animals and children. So I also write about young people, respect for animals and respect for young people. So Revolution Me is my website. You can contact me through there as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I'm just going to recap. So you can find you on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, did you say?
YouTube, yep.
Vegan Neuropsychologist, and your website, Vegan Neuropsychologist on social media, and revolutionme.com.au is your website. Which I think is a beautiful idea, talking about the voiceless and the people who are most vulnerable, kind of children and animals. I think that's wonderful. I haven't actually looked at that, but I'll have a look today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love your insight there. I feel like kids and animals, they do communicate. We just don't listen to it, unfortunately. And it's a systemic problem. We have speciesism and we have childism. Yeah, and you're a mum, so you know just how rampant they can be, both of them.
Thank you so much. I know you have to go, but thank you so much for this interview.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm sure we're going to have lunch dates sometime. I just know it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I feel like we could keep talking all day, to be honest.
Yeah,
there seems to be so many things to cover.
I know.
I really appreciate you having me on your podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Dr. Ash for taking the time to speak with me today. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Next week, we have on the podcast yet another truly amazing story about how a low-fat plant-based diet helped bikini model and bodybuilder Amanda Fisher drastically improve her rheumatoid arthritis. See you next week.